I mean, they really came down to the wire, but I'll take it.
They
A
almost
win's
went
a win.
over.
Yeah, it's looking pretty bad. I mean, I don't want to break any records that bad. So, I mean, I guess that's good, although they really tried to give it away at the end. But hey, win's a win.
Yeah. They were entertaining to watch during that game, I thought. I don't know if you guys want to try to look for positives anymore or like the little
I'll
things
tell you,
there, but yeah.
I don't know who taught Isaac Radcliffe that he's 6'6", but he was playing like he was 6'6".
There you go. A bright spot. I thought he stood out. I wasn't expecting that from Isaac Radcliffe. Were you guys?
No, I was expecting a lackluster. I'm here. It's my first NHL game. I'm just gonna try not to mess up.
I mean, he didn't take it for granted, that's for sure. I mean, sure, we can just, we can kind of magnify what he did, and it's kind of like, all right, you're blowing him up for 3 hits and whatnot. But he was noticeable. He was making positive differences while he was out on the ice. Is it something to get excited over? I don't know if it's there yet. It was nice to see. For me personally, though, when I saw he was called up, I thought for sure it was a paper move. I didn't expect him to play in one game, and now it's kind of like, you have to let him play in another one, right? He's going to play tomorrow night against Winnipeg, right? He played well enough.
Yeah, he has to. He played well enough to stay. And, one thing that really strikes me with this kid is I know that we all talked about his ability to skate with that extremely large frame he has. He's a well above average skater for not only for his size, just period. He can skate extremely well. I didn't expect to see him catching up with plays and leading plays and actually moving his feet as well as he did. It was nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, we had him on quite a long time ago, and the thing he said, it was never an issue about his skill or his speed. A lot of the knock on him was he was a bigger guy who played in a more finesse league, and he was successful there. So he has the finesse skills. It was using his damn body. So to see him throw it around a little bit, it's first game. If you're on offense and you're noticeable, I mean, it's a good thing. I mean, why wouldn't they start him going forward? Are they trying to make the playoffs or something? No, see what you have. See what you have. This is all trial and error right now. See what we got. And if he's playing well, of course, let him go. Whether he ups his value for a trade or you think he legitimately has a spot in a lineup and, this year, next year, or whatever, why wouldn't you see what you have?
And, I was talking to my dad about him, and my dad brought up a very good point. You look at his career stats down with the Phantoms, and 2 of those seasons are COVID destroyed seasons. They're just absolutely. How can you really get your engine going if you're like play 2 games and then you're off for 4 weeks, and then you play a game and then you're off for the next week, and then you maybe play another couple games? Like, it was just a good point that I really didn't take into account, because if you look at his statistics in the AHL, you go, why the hell are they calling this guy up?
It's true, though. But you're right. I mean, that's a great point. And, we talk a lot about how Flyers development has not been great, and it hasn't been. But how much of that has been because of COVID? Now, I know we can look at other teams and go, well, these guys are developed. Los Angeles Kings, for example, they got guys coming up and whatnot. Isaac Radcliffe. Right. So it's not like it's not an excuse, but it's also kind of like, well, yeah, that would affect some of these guys in a negative way. It absolutely wouldn't affect them in a positive way. I mean, this kid scored 50 goals in the OHL, right? He's a 22-year-old kid. I'll be 23 later on this month, February 15th, actually, day after Valentine's Day. I was happy. I was really surprised with Isaac Radcliffe's play in his first game, and the official line on him, he had 12 shifts, played 9 minutes, 3 shots, and 4 hits. He tied for the team lead in hits with Scott Lawton. I mean, he looked like he didn't take it for granted. He didn't leave anything in the locker room, on the bench, or if he had to leave that game feeling satisfied with his performance, I think. At least I think we all were watching.
Now, is it sustainable, I think, is the question we're all asking. Can you consistently play that role on the fourth line? Because if he can consistently play the role he played the other night, he should absolutely stick on the fourth line. There's absolutely no reason for him not to.
I think we all walked away pleasantly surprised. And then it comes to, after that, it comes down to consistency. Because if you're not consistent, you're just another Vorobiev or one of those flashes in the pan that literally 2 games and gone, or something like that. So yeah, consistency is the key. Can he keep it up? Can he keep doing that? Is it more than this is my first game here? I mean, 1 game is an extremely small sample size. I'm still not up to par with Ken York. You stick around for a way to count. I want to see sustained, stay and play. And even if the team's playing poorly, you're still doing your thing. So he's got a long way to go before that, but it's a hell of a start. And a lot of people had written him off.
They keep sticking New York with Yandle though. So I'm like, listen, I know I want to see you like absolutely play good defense, but when your partner is such garbage, it's hard to fault the kid, man. I mean, what was Yandle doing on that 1 goal? And then he's just like, yeah, I'll come over for no reason.
It's tough, man.
He drifted to the one side, and then he kind of just drifted. He didn't take one stride that whole sequence. He just was just drifting.
Well, when the rover position is more so, for an offensive side of the puck, not on defense. So I don't know what the hell he was doing.
The whole time in his head, he's going, Iron Man.
I can do no wrong. Yeah, I mean, it was ridiculous. But hey, if he starts to shine with that bad of a defensive partner, that definitely tells you something too. I mean, Sanheim and Provorov and even Ghost for a while, their trial by fire was playing with Andrew Mcdonald. So hey, make something out of nothing, and before you know it, you really start to catch people's eye.
Is Keith Yandle worse than Andy McDonald, do you think?
I think he was a better overall hockey player than Andy McDonald, but Andy McDonald's career never got to this point, like age-wise. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to compare.
Let's look at the contracts. I mean, Andy McDonald's making $5 million. Yandle's making $900K. And we're not putting Yandle out in key situations to watch him repeatedly. Really key, like games tied or we're up 1 late in the game, and there he is floundering on the ice. Like, he's made some pretty boneheaded decisions and mistakes. We kind of knew what we got going in. That's why he made less than $1 million. Andrew McDonald was signed to be like a cornerstone, at the very worst, second pairing good defenseman, somebody you could rely upon, and he was the complete opposite of that. And he took up a huge chunk of the cap.
He sure did. Well, here's a positive. Cam York had 12 points in the month of January. I mean, I'm sorry, Cam Atkinson. There's too many.
When did that happen?
Holy shit.
Obviously, you guys haven't been watching Cam York this month. No, Cam Atkinson. 12 points, 5 goals, 7 assists in the month of January. Nobody really finished close to what Cam York did. Played outstanding hockey in January.
Said it again.
I said York again?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah,
35 points in 44 games, 17 goals. I mean, he's having a respectable year. Imagine if Coots was around, or imagine if the team was healthy. Jack, you remember in the beginning of the year, you had, man, I can't remember the name now. He was on Full Circle, the Blue Jackets guy.
I know. Yeah, Alex, forget his last name. Nuttall.
Remember he said that Cam Atkinson could potentially have a 40-goal season on this team?
He did.
And I laughed. I'm like, there's no way. If Coots was healthy, and he was playing on that line, obviously, it's possible. He's got 17 goals. He's not playing with the center.
Yeah, I mean, looking at our team and what's transpired, this guy creates his own offense. He creates his own opportunities. He's always, if he's on the ice, the other team is, really zoning in. If it's not Drew, it's Atkinson on offense. Like, they're not worried about the connect knees and everybody else. It's those 2 players, and it shows. He can finish. That's like the biggest thing. He's like Scotty Lawton, who can finish. Like, he's got a great knack for being around the net, being open, and he can really finish. It's great. It's amazing. We're not used to players like that. Not to mention, out of everybody on the team, he's the closest thing to a winner than most players we have. So he's not a guy who gives up, where most of this team just is like, oh, we're down 2 goals, forget it. Let's all pack it in. Even though it's only the first period, he continues to play. He always plays. And he's somebody I want the younger kids to really look after and follow and whatnot, because he never gives up. And I just think he's a really talented player that just, as he gets older, finds ways to create more scoring opportunities for himself. And like you said, had he been playing with more talent, more consistently, he'd have a lot more better stats than he has now.
I'm just looking at through the course of the season here, 6 goals in, what is that, October? 6 goals in October. Struggled a little bit in November. I mean, the entire team
Whole
did.
team did.
5 goals in December and 5 goals in January. So, pretty consistent there from Cam Atkinson. Great addition. I think earlier in the season, we saw a lot of talk about Voracek doing what he's doing in Columbus. He's got 1 goal, by the way, which is, not
ridiculous.
Making a lot of money to score 1 goal. I don't care how many assists you have, 7 million. Dude, that's 7 million per goal. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm sorry, but like I see a lot of this on Flyers Nation on like Facebook, and they're like, "Oh, sure, we got rid of Voracek. Maybe he wasn't the problem." You look at those stats, and you're happy with that at $8.5 million, all those assists. Come on, man. Like, come on. I get he drives play. He hasn't had a bad season by any stretch of the imagination. But how quickly certain people forget how bad he was here, how many points he gives back. Yeah, he might finish the season with 62 points, but he's given 32 points back and mistakes and turnovers and boneheaded plays and just not getting back on defense to just turn around and be like, oh, yeah, $8.5 million, 1 goal, this many assists. He's a great player. Give me a break, man. How quickly people forget. And it's the same thing with Ghost, like he was doing really well here or something. If anybody goes anywhere else, all of a sudden they're God. They just ascend to sainthood the second they leave Philly. Everybody's, oh, I miss him. Why you should never got rid of him? It's just a joke, dude. People completely forget.
The last I checked, which was right this very second, for anybody who wants to know, Jake Voracek has 27 points, 1 goal, 26 assists, and Cam Atkinson sitting at 35 points.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds to me like since he makes less money and we needed somebody who scores, it was the right move just because the rest of the decisions didn't make the most sense and injuries and COVID and whatnot. I'm still doing that trade every single day of the week.
I don't know if you guys have listened to the Cold Stove podcast with, I don't even know this guy's name. He's like the Batman of Twitter, I guess, the Batman of insiders, NRD. He posted something about Jake Voracek, and I think it was along the lines of maybe the Flyers miss Jake Voracek. He's a play driver, which, yes, he is. But I think he on the show, he mentioned how Jake Voracek is a shooter. And now I went back to go look. Jake Voracek's ranked, I believe, 10th all-time in shots on goal for the Flyers. I don't know how.
Well, he's here for
because he was there for freaking 9 years or whatever.
It was him and Drew's team for like 5 years before they had anybody else.
Well, I went back and actually looked game by game, and somehow he's got like 2, 3, 4 shots like every other game, and I'm like, how did this? How? Or like
passes that ended up on net.
No, right. Dumping the puck in. I've seen him do that all the time. Line change.
So if you're looking at stats, you're like, oh, Voracek, yeah, he's a shooter. But if you're watching Jake Voracek, if you're actually watching him, you know that he's not a shooter. And yeah, you might drive play once every 10, 15 shifts, right? So it kind of irked me a little bit because I feel like you have a guy that doesn't really watch the team, giving insight on the team a little bit, and then he had the nerve to kind of bust somebody's balls on Twitter for correcting me. It just irked me a little bit.
Well, it irked me too. I know exactly what you're talking about. He's not a shooter.
No.
Plain and simple. There's no arguing it. Like nobody ever argued that.
If you got 1 goal this year.
Have no
right.
Exactly. you don't get paid $8.5 million play on the first line and come up with 1 goal. There's no way.
You get lucky here and there, man. Like it's crazy.
That's a joke. He's a play driver. He's not a shooter. You know, like this is simple math. This is what happens when you look at stats with 0 context. Like it's unbelievable. Like anybody could do that. So, and by the way, I hate that it's called Cold Stove. I'm sorry. I get it. It's hockey. We play on ice. Hot stove's a baseball thing. You know, the trade talks heat up. That's where that came from. Cold stove, just seems stupid to me. Seems lazy.
Hey, speaking of cold stoves or hot stoves.
Now I want Cold Stone ice cream. Thanks, guys.
I'm on a diet. No ice cream for me. But anyways, I digress. Back to the cold stove, hot stove thing. Cold Stone. Let me bring this up real quick. Sorry for the viewers and the listeners. Al Morgani tweeted this out earlier. Snow and losses piled up in Philly, so Flyers fans thinking ahead to warmer and better days this summer, write the check for Philip Forsberg or Johnny Gaudreau. Kyle, I'll ask you first. If you had to choose, you can't have both. I would like both. If you had to choose, who would you pick to sign for this Philadelphia Flyers team? Philip Forsberg or Johnny Gaudreau?
I see, man. This is tough because they're both good players, and the home ice, like the hometown play that you might get out of Johnny Gaudreau, might top a Philip Forsberg coming here, because you know what I mean. The extra little bit of motivation I'm playing at home, but that could go both ways too. He could get a little too comfortable now that he's right across the bridge from his hometown.
Yep.
That's a tough one, man. I'd honestly, if I could get Gaudreau for a decent cap hit, I'd take Gaudreau over Forsberg.
Jack, who would you take?
It's a very good question. Depends. You want a goal scorer or do you want an assist guy? You know, I mean, Forsberg's going to put up goals. He's closer to a point a game per player, but Gaudreau's got a ton of assists, and he's got those 3 seasons in which he could have been in the MVP conversation. I mean, 99 points one year. I knew he had an 84-point season and a 79. I don't think Forsberg's ever hit 70. I think he's hit the high 60s. And it's those peak years of Gaudreau are very, very, very good. But Forsberg's been more consistent and he puts up a lot more goals. I agree with Kyle in the sense that if I can get a deal on Gaudreau money-wise, I'm going that route. However, if I'm not, I kind of lean Forsberg because I want guys who score goals.
So I was kind of just looking some things up here. And you guys both said Forsberg there, by the way? Just making sure.
No, I said
Gaudreau. Okay. I was looking up ages for whatever reason because, you know, that's like a thing. They're both born on the same day, August 13th, which is weird. Gaudreau is a year older, for whatever that's worth. He looks a lot younger.
Yeah.
Gaudreau's 5'9", 165. That's what they have here. Philip Forsberg, 6'1", 205. Both play left wing. Forsberg shoots right. Gaudreau shoots left. This is a little tough. Just going by season stats this year, Gaudreau, 17 goals, 35 assists in 40 games. He'd be tied for Atkinson with goals on the team for the Flyers. Philip Forsberg, 22 goals in 32 games, 36 points. I would take either one, to tell you the truth.
But look at it this way. You guys say, Jack, you say Philip Forsberg if you want more goal scoring. But that's only a couple more goals. And then if you even look at their careers, Forsberg has 200 goals. Gaudreau has 187. It's not that
but
far.
Look at the points. Look at points.
Because
Forsberg's a lot closer to a point per game player than Gaudreau is. Gaudreau has a down year. It's down. He has a really peak year. It's up there. You know,
I'm gonna stop you there real quick because Gaudreau's got 546 and 560, and Forsberg's got 421 and 529. Forsberg, I think, has been hurt a lot, so maybe that kind of skewed things up there.
But I think this team wants to get bigger. I think they want to be able to. They don't want to get. I mean, listen, I'll take Gaudreau. Don't get me wrong, but I do think they want to get bigger.
That's a factor.
Forsberg has also had a playoff run. He's been to a Stanley Cup where Gaudreau's maybe gone to the second round. You know, a lot of the questions with him has come to his playoff play, him disappearing in the playoffs, where that hasn't been the case with Forsberg, obviously. It's very close, and like my heart says Gaudreau, but when I look at some of the stats, when I look at what we need, when I look at his size, the only thing that can persuade me to Gaudreau at this point is just money.
Yeah. So let's look at let's look at what it might cost to sign one of these two players. So let's start off with Gaudreau. Like we mentioned, hometown kid, went to Gloucester Catholic. Woo! Making $6.75 million this season. Does he get a raise? How does he make less than Kevin Hayes? Right?
No, he's going to be 7.58 mil.
Yeah, he's having a much better year this year.
So it's like,
he's on my fantasy team. Trust me.
Do we want to fall into that again, paying a winger over $7 million again? Is he worth that, you think?
Dude, he puts up a shit ton of points, man. You're talking about a guy with over 500 points in a little over 500 games.
I would love to see him on a line with Atkinson.
Yes,
He's
I
going to
agree.
be this guy. Like, wow.
I agree.
I don't know how you make
The
that work.
The speed alone would be amazing to watch.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. However,
Gaudreau, Coots, and Atkinson could be a nice line.
That would be a hell of a line, yeah.
Right?
Forsberg, you'll find a spot for, obviously, but that, especially if you get a money discount, that'll persuade me real quick. We'll see how the rest is. I'd be happy with either one, obviously, and we honestly need both. But if I had to choose, and you're going to do that, and you're getting them for around Kevin Hayes money, probably a little bit more. And this is with a discount. It's hard to say no to that.
And then you have Forsberg, who's making currently $6 million on the dot. Does he get over $7 million? When I look at his stats, it really 15, 16, and 16, 7 are really the only years that kind of pop out to me. Like he's got
over 30,
33 goals, 31 goals in back-to-back seasons, and then it's kind of just like, it's like Konechny numbers or what I'm hoping Farabee is going to eventually do. And they're both making around $5 million. It's like, I don't know. Does he get a raise? Someone's going to overpay, I think. But what do you guys think?
I think if I'm going to overpay, I'm overpaying for Gaudreau, which is he's a more proven offensive producer at this point in their careers.
Fair.
Yeah, now that I look at his stats, he really hasn't played a lot of games is what the problem is. Look at his last 2 seasons. He's played what? 71 games combined between 2 seasons.
Let's get away from the injury-prone players, please.
No, I agree. I agree. I do think he helps your power play a lot more, but that's tough. He clearly out produces on the goal score, but like he's starting to trail off a bit. It seems like, and Gaudreau's assists are through the roof. I like some of.
He has 17 goals, so it's not like he's not potting the puck in the back of the net either.
Yeah,
so he's putting up 35 assists. Or what does he have this year? So far, 30 assists.
So
35 assists, and he's got 17 goals. What's Philip Forsberg have?
22. I didn't realize that Gaudreau was
he's only got 14 assists. You got to remember, this is the first year that Nashville's really they had a little push last year, but they were like the last team to make it. They were like on a downward trend. Only this year that they turn it around and start playing better. Where I think Gaudreau's had a little bit better company to play with. Where Forsberg, if you put him with Coots and G, if he's back, but then I kind of think about it, and it's kind of redundant with Atkinson. You probably want him there anyway.
Well, Forsberg's a left winger, so G wouldn't be.
Yeah, I don't think
it would be Forsberg, Coots, and Atkinson on that first line.
You're definitely going for broke with the goal scoring on that, which I'm all about. But you can make it work.
Honestly, at this point, I think that your best bet on getting a player for a little less than what they would make on the open market is obviously Gaudreau. If the kid wants to come here and he wants to play in Philly in front of his home crowd, you might be able to get him at 7.5. Whereas if he goes on the open market, he's getting paid 8.5 easy.
If that's the case, and you can get a discount, this isn't even a conversation. If you can get a discount in this market, you got to go Gaudreau because you have so many other holes you have to fill. If you can get a discount and get a guy of that skill,
Could you imagine if they pluck Gaudreau and then G comes back at a 2x3 deal?
Wouldn't that? Oh, that would blow my mind. But it should entice him regardless. We're really trying here. Let's go. I see so many more line combinations with Gaudreau in a lineup. I do worry about the size a little bit. But you know what? Looking at Forsberg's trend, he's definitely trending downwards. You like the size, you like the point production, but the injuries are mounting. And he's from 2017, 2018. He only played 67 games. He had 64 points, and then it went to 50 to 48 to 32. He's got 36 already this year, but they're finally playing a lot better. But like you said, Gaudreau's much right there with you. So
pure speculation, Cliff. Pure speculation.
Oh, yeah. It's been speculation since his second year in Calgary. It's always been, he said it himself. I want to play with Philly before I retire. That's a quote from Johnny Gaudreau.
I'm just going to say it this way we can come back to this episode. I think it's happening. I think he's signing in Philadelphia. I don't know if he's going to take the discount or not, but all of his buddies are here, right? They brought Kevin Hayes in. And I'll get conspiracy-ish for you. Maybe they signed Kevin Hayes knowing that Johnny Hockey's going to be a free agent in a couple of years. We're going to bring him in. This is it. We're going to, entice him with his friends. We're going to bring all of his buddies in. It's 20 minutes from where he grew up. Why not? Right? And
what's funny about that? It's like I completely agree with you. I feel like it's going to happen too, and I'm down.
Yeah.
I just feel like the way that the Flyers' history has gone with all this, especially recent history, it's not going to end horribly.
Dude, listen, honestly, if they can just stay healthy if you bring in a Gaudreau and if you can get a Coots fully healthy and a Kevin Hayes fully healthy and possibly, I say this very loosely because I do not know how much of a discount this guy's going to take to come back. But if you could add a Gaudreau back and him be on your second line and not your first, I mean, it looks good. But again, you know what, dude? I'm done making things look good on paper because it means jack shit to how the season actually plays out.
But also it depends on what they do. Like, I really think Konechny could be moved this offseason.
I don't see why not.
Why not, right? Like, I don't know if it's for a defenseman. I don't know if it's for picks. I don't know if it's for player for player. I have no idea. I just feel like he's going to get traded. I really feel that way strongly about that.
They got some chips to play with, and that's kind of been my whole thing. That's why I was kind of against the tear all down kind of thing. Is they have chips to move, right? They can do some things. I think the most important thing, and Dave Scott said it in the press conference, Chuck's got a blank check. He's got blank checks. Well, now we got to hold you accountable to that. Now you got to, put your money where your mouth is now. It's very easy to say things. Flyers fans aren't going to let you forget that. Because really, and I forget where this conversation was had. Maybe it was Twitter. Maybe I can't remember. But we were talking about how the Rangers sent a message to their fans, and they made it clear what their intentions were, right? They were going to tear everything down. They weren't going to be happy for a couple seasons, and they were going to draft. And hey, they got lucky. Things happened for them where their process was sped up a little bit. The Flyers, in typical Flyer fashion, which somebody like me, I'm not huge on draft picks and prospects and things like that. I tried to be, and I'm knowledgeable of who's doing what and who they could take and everything. But that doesn't mean that's my preferred way of building a hockey team. So when I heard them,
you could get a top 4 pick this year.
Jimmy, you're because of Hextall, you're jaded to that whole.
So here, like even before Hextall, like think back to like
Los Angeles.
Well, think back to like past shows from like years ago, Jack. Like I always hated the thought of like stinking to draft high. Like even now, like I still want them to win games because it's like even if they pick 10, 11, 12, even if they pick number 2, it's like you don't know what you're getting. Sure, this guy it's like a shiny new toy, but is it gonna pay off? I don't know. But that's kind of like side topic. I wanted to talk about more about the blank check quote because if you listen to the
well, let me just counter that real quick, and I'll tie it into the blank check real quick. Sure. So the only way to get like a stud, when you don't want to draft, you don't trust, you don't know what you're going to get, is to spend a blank check in free agency. And every time the Flyers have done that, it really hasn't worked out. Like, when's the last time we brought in a free agent that we just was a stud? Like, just we nailed it.
Yeah,
maybe Danny Briere. Like, it's tough. I know we traded for Tiemann and Hartnell. Pronger was a trade. It's tough. Like, to go get the top free agent and spend top dollar. Like, look at Bobrovsky, or not Bobrovsky, Brizgalov rather. Like Brizgalov, like that definitely didn't pan out. Vinny LeCavalier didn't pan out. Like, it works the other way too. Like Kevin Hayes, how's that working out? Like you can draft and then you could fail, or you can go spend all this money, have a long-term deal, and have that blow up in your face too. So that's where it is. Now, where the team sits now, I understand going for the free agent. I get that. I won't argue that. I just don't know who's going to be available, who's really going to turn the table. And I love the idea of adding a Gaudreau or even a Forsberg. I just don't know that either one of them have the clout to turn a team around. Yeah, they can make us better on paper, but they're just part of the puzzle where you can literally land a franchise guy with the right drafting and development, which you can have all the arguments in the world when it comes to Flyers with that. I get it, but that's where that comes from.
The only thing that is absolutely for sure here is if they're really going to make a play for a guy like Johnny Hockey, and you're going to pay him, let's just say he takes a slight discount. Say we're paying him 7.5, where he on the open market he's going to be making 8.5 easy. So he takes $1 million discount to come here. You have to unload JVR's contract in between the season.
Oh,
you have no.
I think I do regardless.
But that leaves you no other option, and obviously it definitely increases the chances of guys like Konechny being gone. And you can get some young kids back for Konechny, I think.
Maybe not. Depending on the team. I think Ottawa got brought up, trading him to Ottawa. I think that's a team you can get young kids back, draft capital back. They got a ton of prospects there. So, I'd be all for that. And whether you use those assets to add to the team now or some kind of soft rebuild, I don't know. But, you can absolutely do that. Now, if I could just answer a question real quick in the chat. Antimeo, appreciate your contribution as always. To my no, not that one, the Jágr one.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So what I was saying was like the Brad Richards, to quote the Rangers, or a player like that, like 7 years, $9 million, whatever it is. Jágr was a 1-year deal at $3.3 million, not exactly a long-term commitment or anything like that. Love the addition of Jágr. I mean, my fantasy team's named after Jágr, for God's sake. I love Jágr, but not what I'm referencing when I say that. When you go for broken free agency, it's usually what a guy, it's a Tavares type signing when they are available. So different style of free agent. Not to mention, I think Jágr was coming back from the KHL when we signed him.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I think, like I was saying, Dave Scott kind of put himself in the corner there. Coming out and saying Chuck's got a blank check. So now it's like, if they don't go out and get a guy, you have to start looking at it. I think the fire's got to be back on Dave Scott and Chuck Fletcher. Because what I felt from that press conference was, it was kind of just like everything that we already knew. Like the team they're done. 40 games in, they're throwing in the white flag. To me, it was kind of like, hey, he was kind of talking. I felt like he was talking to unrestricted free agents already. Like, hey, if you're an unrestricted free agent next year, our GM's got blank checkbooks and he's going to be writing big checks. So, if you want to get paid, make sure you're looking at the Flyers first, right? So if you're a UFA, you're kind of perking up and you're like, smell money in Philly. Maybe I want to go play there. Who's there?
What my favorite term in sports is, and that's what I think he was doing there. Legal tampering.
Oh, yeah.
What an oxymoron. Legal tampering.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Right.
And good. If that's the case, then kudos.
I'm okay with that because they got to do stuff differently, right? It can't just be the same thing. And if a guy, so I think I'm on record in the past as saying I didn't really, if I had a choice of what kind of player I want, I don't think I would. I forget who we were comparing him to, but Johnny Gaudreau, it wasn't at the top of my list. Right. But we're seeing the style of this Flyers team. They're not very fast. They don't have much going on offensively. And you see a guy like Johnny Gaudreau as a free agent, you bring him in. You have to bring him in. And hey, if he makes, and I think maybe some of the listeners might start getting annoyed at me here. If you got to pay him $7 million for 5, 6, 7 years, you do it, I think. Right. I think he can make a difference offensively, Johnny Gaudreau. He's doing it in Calgary. And you look at their roster, and it's not like, I mean, it's got Makachuk out there. There's one more guy.
They're talking, I seen something the other day. Makachuk's looking for like $9 million a year.
He's having a hell of a year. Yeah. It's pretty nuts. They got Elias Lindholm. Mangiapane had a great start to the season. He hasn't done much since.
Isn't Monahan playing better?
Let me double check because I know
they dropped him in a lineup significantly. I knew that.
Let me double check there. So 19 points, 40 games, better numbers than he had in the beginning of the year. But since you brought him up, what the hell happened to Sean Monahan?
I don't know.
This was a guy that I was like, yeah, a couple, like 2-3 years ago. I'm like, maybe the Flyers should check this guy. I'd love if they could just have Couturier, Monahan, but he fell off bad. He hit a wall.
Yeah, I don't know. That's weird.
Maybe a change of scenery helps.
True. Hey, look at Bennett. Look at Bennett getting moved out of there.
Yeah, what's Bennett's tearing it up in Florida.
Oh my God. He's a point per game player. Dude, he's got 27 goals this season.
And he was getting benched in Calgary.
Let me double check what he's got, because
coach had been coaching. They had I forget who they had before Suter.
Yeah, that's a great point too, because there was a question here in the chat here. Let's address that. So from Cliff, okay, so say we get Gaudreau. Who's the coach? Gaudreau responded well to Sutter, but was brutal a couple years in a row. Needs to be the right coach behind the bench, and I think that's spot on. Guys, I know you agree with that. This could be the most important coaching hire.
Oh my God!
In our Flyers' lifetime,
it doesn't.
It is it not? Because I mean, this team.
Oh my God! Alain Vigneault was important.
The team is built to win, though. Now, like, it's built, right? So if you bring in
to win, they won like 10 games this whole year.
Right. But the way the roster is constructed, it's not built to bring in another Dave Hackstall. You know what I mean?
The direction of the team and the money being spent is we're trying to win.
They have to bring in a guy and they can't miss. If they miss, then I'll say, yeah, it's time to tear things down, because you missed on two coaches twice in a row. The guys who are supposed to help are now all 2-3. By the time this new coach is done, it'll be 3 years later. So all of our veterans, if they're 28, 29 years old now, they're going to be 32, 33. They have to hit here, or we are going to be looking at the whole rebuild thing. So that's why I'm saying it could be the most important coaching hire in our Flyers lifetime.
I don't think it's Tortorella.
I kind of hope it's not at this point, to tell you the truth.
Not now. I said that out of spite. Like, I wanted him to make people retire and quit. Like, that was out of spite. That wasn't realistic. I don't know. You need somebody who can I don't want them stuck in their ways. They have to adapt to their players. They can't. You can push your system and make people believers and get people behind your play. But if it's not working, make adjustments. Like, fix it. Like, don't square peg round hole this until you're fired after a 10-game losing streak. Like, you have to make
realistically speaking, do you think Rick Tocchet has a shot here?
I think he's in the conversation. I don't know if he's my top choice, but
I don't think he's my top choice, but I mean, I was looking back and he took a couple young Coyotes teams. I mean, they were young. They had some old guys on the team. It was a decent mixture, but it was definitely a well below average team to the playoffs.
No, he definitely maybe not have been a massive overachievement, but he overachieved with Phoenix, or Arizona rather, for sure. Why didn't he, like, he interviewed with the Rangers, and they obviously went Gallant, which he's a 3-year guy, and usually his early years he has a lot of success. But then he interviewed with the Kraken. I don't know if the Kraken are just crazy or if he just doesn't interview.
Clearly, have you seen the team that they built?
Yeah. What I heard though was it may have been just money. That's the reason they went with somebody else. Because 3 interviews, you don't know by the first or second that you do or don't want the guy. Sounds to me that money that I heard about, the money, that rumor, is probably closer to the truth, which gives me a little more faith in that maybe he is a more highly touted guy right now who's just looking for the better situation. I don't know. It depends to me who else is available, who gets fired and whatnot, and we'll make a decision from there. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but I think there could be a better coach out there for this team right where they're at right now.
This is Torch still?
No, I brought up Tocchet.
I love Tocchet. I mentioned him a couple years ago. I think while he was with Arizona. So I'm looking at some of his stuff here. This guy was with Tampa Bay from 08-09 to 2009-2010. He was an assistant with the Avalanche back in the early 2000s, an assistant with Pittsburgh from 2014 to 2017, and then Arizona, obviously, 2017 to 2021. Look, those Arizona teams were 500 teams. I think in his overall record is around 500. They lost in the second round of the playoffs in 2019-20. I think Did they beat the Avalanche or did they lose to them in 7 games? Something weird like that, I think, right?
They definitely didn't beat them. I don't know how many games it was.
Okay. So, but what I saw from them, and I'm sure, if you guys remember the Flyers playing those Arizona teams, is they were tough to play against. They were tough to score against. They were tough to win against. And I think they even beat the Flyers a couple times during that tenure there. And so, you think back to the way Tocchet played the game. You see him on these TNT shows and whatnot when there's hockey on TNT, and he's got a great personality. I don't know if I want to call him a player's coach per se, but he'll definitely. I don't know what the right terminology is. Maybe like he'll help with the camaraderie. He'll get along with the players, but also show them how to play the game tough, play the game the right way. I don't think he's a guy that will accept, you'll come out for the first 5-10 minutes of the game and play how you're supposed to. And then, the next 40-45 minutes, you're just getting your ass whooped. I don't think he'll accept
or vice
that.
versa.
Yeah. So that's kind of, and I'm not even rah-rahing for Rick Tocchet, but if they do get him, I don't think he's the worst hire. I don't know who else is out there, but the popular names were Tocchet and Tortorella. I thought it was interesting that what we heard about Tortorella. So, and Cliff, this is something that we had heard, from an inside source here. They were ready to pull the trigger on Tortorella. The only person that didn't want Tortorella was Chuck Fletcher, or else he would be the coach already. At least that's what we were told. So I found that interesting. And, like I said, if you watch the TNT shows, you were almost led to believe that Rick Tocchet was waiting for the phone call, So who knows?
So wait, come again, because you said Tortorella.
Yeah.
But did you mean Rick Tocchet?
No. So Tortorella, I had somebody reach out on Twitter, and this is not just a random person. It's a pretty, solid source connected to some of the guys in the organization. But the other part was, they were joking around with Rick Tocchet on live TV saying, hey, you should be waiting for a phone call. And I think somebody even did call him like during one of the post-game shows, and he walked off set. So I think a lot of people were expecting to hear Tocchet's name. I think Fletcher wanted Tocchet, but I don't think, this is just my opinion here, this is not anything that we heard, I don't think management, like guys like Dave Scott, were on board with Tocchet. I think they wanted Torts. I think Fletcher wanted Tocchet, and that's why we don't have a coach yet. They kind of just said, okay, well, let's let the rest of the season play out, and we'll decide in the offseason. That's my opinion, just going based off what I heard and what we saw. So that's why those two names come up. And I don't know who else is available.
Yeah, maybe they're waiting to see who gets fired and whatnot, and see who becomes available, and guys are in half retirement and whatnot. And I wouldn't have no issues with Tocchet. I just, I guess my biggest issue is not so much the coach; it's the core of the team, and will they respond to a player like that? Yeah. I think I could see them with any coach coming in and having a nice start. It's just maintaining that, not falling off. And when things are bad, they just tune everybody out, it seems like. So, we'll have to see for sure with where they go. And if the team responds, that'll always be my biggest concern, because this team has been nothing but coach killers.
I'm definitely Team Tocchet over Team Torts by a long shot.
Did you already explain why you prefer Tocchet over Torts while I was in the bathroom?
I just don't like Torts as a coach. Like there's not much to it other than I just don't like him.
So that's a little interesting to me, because I would take you as somebody that would like Torts' style. Why don't you like Torts' style?
I'm just not a fan of him. I don't know. You're expecting this long-winded. Like, I'm just not a fan of the guy. I think the guy's full of shit.
Prejudice against Italians or what?
No, I just think the guy's full of shit.
Why? Why do you think that?
I just think he's full of shit.
Okay.
I wouldn't hate him. He's not my first choice. I just worry that his style, it might be getting a little outdated. I don't like his mindset. Like, look at the Zegras stuff. Like, it's just so overblown. Like, all right, who cares? Like, the Ducks are winning. That's all that matters. Stop picking on them. It irks me. But he's a hard-nosed guy, which is, I would love this. I would just love this team to have a guy, like Mike Keenan, who would like death skate them. I just because they're so bad and they're so whiny. I would just love to see him just crumble under him, or God forbid, succeed. Like it happens. It happened in the 80s with Mike Keenan. He ran those guys rugged. They went to 3 Stanley or 2 under Keenan. They went to 2 Stanley Cups. Like, come on, against a friggin' the greatest dynasty in hockey. And they took the one of them. They took the game 7. You know what I mean? Like that. He got shit done. That was a different era though. That's where I'm like, I don't know. He did good in Columbus. There's no doubting that. And that was his most recent stint. But how old's he now? And he's a lightning rod, man. Like, do we want that? We have enough issues here in Philly.
It's true. I think Flyers fans would love him. I'm just not sure. So the next coach that they hire, I want to be here for a little while. You know, I know there's
totally up to if the Flyers decide to show up.
I want to get to know him. I want to,
But I kind of do though. Like I feel like we didn't, Alain Vigneault had the weirdest coaching tenure of any coach in recent memory for at least the Flyers, right? The guy didn't coach a full season. Not that I think he should still be here, but he didn't coach one 82-game season for the Philadelphia Flyers. So and then the coach before him was Dave Hackstall. Like, come on, can we just get a coach that we like, that's here for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years, just something to build on a little bit. Some stability, I guess, is what I'm looking for from the next coach. A guy that can, I want him to get the best out of everybody while also, bringing guys along. Not that I want them to develop in the NHL level, but, I don't know.
Yeah, but sometimes that's what it takes, though, Jim, and that's what I'm starting to realize. Like, a lot of guys, and obviously we only have one sample size with Isaiah Radcliffe, but look at Cam York. He's meh in the AHL, and he comes up and he's playing pretty decent hockey in the NHL.
Yeah,
I mean he's a pretty solid defenseman. Granted, he's got to play with Yandle, which could make the best of us look terrible in hockey.
So you're saying you want Mike Yao?
No. What are you talking about? I just think you say you don't want anybody to develop in the NHL, right?
So ideally, if it was, a perfect world, I would say if a player's on the NHL team, it's because he's ready to play, I don't want. So the whole purpose of Dave Hackstall, at least in my perspective, was because he was good with player development. And to me, that means, okay, you're going to be throwing a lot of 19, 20, 21, 22-year-olds on the roster, and they're going to gradually get better, which makes a lot of sense. But I think the way the team is constructed now, they don't have to go through that. So I want a coach that's ready to win, and that means having players that are ready to play in the NHL and ready to contribute to victories. It's not, well, let's bring up these 3, 4, 5 guys and, we'll help them along the way. Like, winning shouldn't be secondary. Winning should be first. All this player development stuff, they develop in the lower leagues. When they're in the NHL, it's time to win games, But
at the same time, I want to coach on the flip side of that coin. I want a coach that's going to take these kids and put them in a position where they can succeed.
Sure, absolutely.
Not play them for 3 minutes a freaking game, and go, why isn't this guy developing? I don't know, because you're playing him for 3 minutes a game.
Sure, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah,
look no further than a guy who I wasn't too mad that the Flyers lost on waivers, but Nico Bay-Kubel has been playing phenomenal for the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I don't want a guy who's so incredibly reliant on veteran players. Like, I want him to just play the best players, the best guy for each situation.
In a good position. But play him in a position where they can succeed. Don't bury him and then go like, well, he's never going to make it. Let's put him on waivers. Bye. It's just.
Right. And I don't want to, a guy that is okay at best in a key situation because he's a veteran compared to a young guy just because he's young, but he's playing well. Like, I can't stand that Stone Age thinking. Like, you play the best players and you play them in a system that works. If your system's not perfect, then tweak your system, make adjustments. Don't be boneheaded and just try to make it work. And when you lose 10 games in a row, go, I don't know what happened. Like, somebody with a brain cell, a new age thinking player or coach rather. I even like a GM like that too, but like a coach that can just adapt on the fly because that's just the age we're in. Like you can't just have a system and this is what we're going to do and we're going to win and it doesn't matter who the pieces are, you're going to work because that's not the case. And I think that was one of AV's downfalls.
I mean, that exactly. And we all called that on AV. We were like, this dude cannot make an in-game adjustment to save his life. If any team, what was that?
I'm saying he didn't. You're right. But I feel like he could have. He refused to because it was his system and there was no.
Yeah, it was my system or the highway, even though my system was trash and not working.
Exactly.
All right. So, I mean, they need a good coach is basically what we're saying. They need a good coach. You know?
They need Jesus Christ to come back from the dead and coach this team to victory.
Maybe he will. So maybe if he's available in the offseason, Chuck, you better be on that.
We're hiring around there. Easter then.
At this point, I'll even take the Antichrist. Just give me some.
So let's get to the next best thing. Is Danny Briere the next Flyers general manager? So I'll bring this up because I believe it was Saturday. They played the Kings on Saturday, right? Chuck Fletcher was announced to deliver the award to Keith Yandle for his consecutive games played record. And when Chuck Fletcher was announced, he was announced as president of hockey operations. He was not announced as the general manager of the Flyers. Could have been announced as both. Could have just been, a simple thing. And, we're reading into too much, but that's kind of what we do. We're supposed to read into things so we can speculate. And there was a picture of Danny Briere talking to Chuck Fletcher at the Flyers practice today in Voorhees. I had mentioned, I believe a week or two ago that, hey, Danny Briere is in the box with Chuck Fletcher. I think a couple games later, somebody confirmed that Briere had a meeting with Fletcher and Flair in the box or something. So Danny Briere is kind of hanging around. He was assistant coaching some games with the Phantoms. There was rumblings that the Flyers didn't want him to sign with Montreal. They were trying to keep him around. And hey, if they want to move him up within the organization, so he's starting to, I think, learn and climb the ladder a little bit here. As far as I know, he's still the general manager of the Maine Mariners. I have to double check that. But what it looks like to me is they're preparing Danny Briere to be the next GM of the Philadelphia Flyers. I'll ask you guys, Jack, we'll start with you first. What are your thoughts there? Do you believe that he could be the right hire? I just want to know your thoughts. What do you think about Danny Briere potentially being the next Flyers GM?
It's hard not to want it. It's hard not to like it. Everybody loved Danny Briere. He loves Philly. It's like a natural fit. Mm-hmm. And then you throw in the whole Montreal thing, how he was a candidate there. So on the outside looking in, I'm like, yeah, let's go. Let's do it. But when I kind of break it down, and I still want it ultimately, yes or no, yes, I want it. How ready is he for that position? I don't know. I mean, I think the only reason he was really in contention with Montreal as long as he was is because he could speak French. I think that's huge for Montreal. You have to be able to talk to more than half of your fan base. And that's a real thing. They really want that in a GM. He's running the ECHL team, right? How do you go from that to a NHL general manager position? Like, there's something to that. However, there's got to be potential there as well. Now, how much do we trust the guys bringing him along? I know nothing of his own philosophy. I know nothing of it. I just assume he's a genuine good dude who's very passionate about hockey, who is younger and probably has more advanced thinking than some of these old hockey guys. So I don't know any other GMs out there, and I know he's a guy that's being highly touted. So I'm on board. Just remember, though, Hextall was incredibly highly touted but at the time of his hiring. So that just keep that in mind. He was being courted by several teams, and ultimately the Flyers had to jump and bump Holmgren up to president to get Hextall as GM. So while I don't think it's the end all be all, I still want it to happen. It seems exciting. It's not a perfect. There could be issues here.
Okay, Kyle, same question. What do you think of Danny Briere as potentially the next Flyers GM?
I like the idea that you're bringing in a younger guy who understands the game, played at speed. He's played the game with speed his entire career. I do like that. He knows what it takes to build a good power play. He was a dominant power play player. He knows what it takes to win in the playoffs. He knows what type of player it takes to have on your team to win in the playoffs. I like it ultimately. I don't know if I want to rush him to be the GM, which I don't. It doesn't look like that's what they're doing at this point. Nothing's been announced. So if he can hang around for the rest of the season in a kind of like an AGM role, kind of like following Fletcher around maybe a bit. But again, like, do I really trust Fletcher to groom Briere to be a good GM? It's like, the one thing you can't knock on Fletcher is he tried. He tried to build a team in the offseason. He put all his chips in that retool basket, and it just didn't work. Oh, well. But that's the risk you take when you roll the dice like that. Dude, if it's lose Briere to another team so he can be GM somewhere else, then I take Briere as a GM all day long. But I'd like to see him take at least a season to be groomed, or at least the rest of this season to actually hang around, to actually have some input on some decisions before I'm like, yeah, definitely he's the GM. You know what I mean?
I think that's fair.
I mean, how much of it is the idea of a beloved former Flyer taking over as GM and righting the ship? Like, it just sounds so satisfying. But how much of it's realistic? What do we even know about Briere? And as me and Kyle both pointed out, the guys bringing him along have been utter failures. So, like, what are we looking at here? What do we don't know that they know, or do we not know anything and they don't know anything either? Like, I don't know. I think the Montreal thing bumped this up a notch, and the idea is fantastic, but what do we really know?
One thing I will point out that I really do like is the idea of moving Fletcher into more of like a homegrown role and bringing in a GM. And as long as you can just separate just a little bit more of the Comcast Corporation with hockey guys underneath, like if you can provide a little bit more of a buffer between corporate and GM, because if I have to see Dave Scott talking directly to Chuck Fletcher as if he has any idea what's going on, again, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to see it. I don't want Dave Scott anywhere around my GM. I want my GM to make GM decisions. And if he has to talk to somebody, I want him talking to somebody who understands the sport.
That's actually that's a really good point. Actually, you mentioned, one more former NHL player, in between, or one more hockey guy in between the GM and Dave Scott. I'm wondering now if maybe I mean, I don't know. This is my opinion again. I'm wondering if Dave Scott is kind of realizing this and is like, hey, why don't you take on the role that I have here, that Dave Scott is to Chuck Fletcher, and hire yourself a GM. Take some of the load off yourself a little bit. And maybe this is Dave Scott's chance to take a step back, to get out of the spotlight. We don't want to hear from Dave Scott, right? And I think that was pretty apparent after the press conference. Like, why was he there? Why did he think he had to be there? Who wants to hear from Dave Scott? Nobody wants to hear from him. The only thing good that he could have said, the only thing good that he could have said was Chuck's got blank checks. After that, just go away. We don't need to hear anything else.
Yeah, less is more when it comes to Dave Scott. Less is more.
Right.
And if Fletcher's pretty good with the media for the most part. So if you put Fletcher in that Dave Scott role and Briere in the GM role, I think they handle things a lot better, and it just looks better.
People. That was a great point by Kyle. They need more hockey minds in there that know what they're talking about. Dave Scott doesn't know what he's talking about. Anybody can say, hey, let's drop a bunch of money on this player. You need to find the right guys that fit with this team. So, yeah, I think, hey, Danny Briere is a good guy. And first and foremost, you should be looking for good people. And I think Danny Briere is that. A lot of success in the NHL. He knows what it takes to win games in the playoffs and obviously produce. I think this is a passionate guy, a guy that wants to win. He didn't win a Stanley Cup in his career, right? He went to one or two with the Sabres and Flyers. Mm-hmm. I think he has a hunger and a desire to win. I think I know it's cliche to say, This is a Philly guy. He's got a fire in him. He might be small and soft spoken, but this guy, don't let him fool you. He's got fire in him. I think he'd be a hell of a GM. I think he'd be a great hire. Somebody new, right? Which a lot of people want. You hear people all the time. Oh, they keep bringing in the old boys, blah, blah, blah. Well, this is the chance. This is the chance to bring in somebody new. Give him a fresh start, a fresh slate. Let's see what Danny Briere can do. And like you guys were saying, pair him up with Chuck Fletcher. Let Fletcher show him the ropes. Fletcher's got all the contacts. I think people are worried about that a little bit with Briere. Like, what does he know about being GM in the NHL? I'll agree. I will agree with that. That's why I think, if you're able to pair him up with Fletcher can kind of bring him along a little bit, get his feet wet. And, eventually Danny Briere, he's going to do his thing.
For the guy.
Right. Yeah. That's all. I think that's a smart move to do that. I would be fully on board. If they were to can Fletcher and just hire Briere, I think that could be potentially a mistake. But if they keep Fletcher around as president of hockey, whatever, and let Briere do his thing as GM, I think that's very smart. So there's my 2 cents on Danny Briere there. And also, if for the listeners, and if you guys haven't as well, go back and check out My Dad Used to Play Hockey podcast with Zach Hinderchuk. He had Danny Briere on back in August, and he talks about wanting to be an NHL GM one day and whatnot. You'll learn a little bit, I think, because there's some guys on Twitter that I've seen who people just want to hire old Flyers players. They don't even know what he's going to do, but it's almost kind of an ignorant thing to say. So before you want to go on Twitter and say that, go back and listen to the episode, listen to Danny Briere a little bit. That's where kind of my confidence or my desire to have him as a Flyers GM kind of comes from. The guy knows his stuff, and he knows that he needs to learn more, which I think is important. When you think you know everything, that's when things start to go wrong. So that had me excited a little bit. Go check out the episode, and that's it. What else we got tonight, guys? We're about a little bit over. We're an hour and 4 minutes in. 15 minutes over 45 minutes. Sorry, Kyle. I think we got to everything. We didn't talk about the Flyers losing that much. We talked about some fun stuff. What else? That's it?
That's it. The Flyers losing got a little old. They did end the skid. It's over.
It's over. Thank you, God. Now tomorrow's a chance to start a 2-game winning streak. To take on the Winnipeg Jets at home. I would be remiss if I didn't mention big things coming to the post-game show, guys. Big things. Dave Leonard's taking over the show as the main host. He's doing some big things. He's got guests lined up for February, pretty big guests. And it's not going to be just a post-game show anymore. It's going to be a little bit more than that. I don't want to give too much away because I want Dave to kind of, do his thing. And I'm not sure if he wanted me to release everything yet. It's kind of secretive or something, but it's going to be fun.
Super double top secret.
Yeah, 007 secret. Yeah, you're going to have a new live show to watch after Flyers games. Not necessarily a post-game show. All kinds of guests. It's going to be fun. So I'll leave it at that. Make sure you keep an eye out for it. If there's nothing else, we'll wrap up the show. I think we'll have a post game tomorrow night. We'll talk more about what we're going to do with post games then. But for now, that's going to do it for the episode. Next time you catch us live will be tomorrow night, post game for Flyers and Jets. So make sure you're drinking your green stuff, taking your vitamins, and everybody enjoy the rest of your night.